And I'm gonna do a combo finisher. 26 damage, nice. And now I need to get away. Oh, he's still gonna hit me. Ah! Yeah, I was in range. Welcome to Early Access Gold, where we look at games coming into the early access arena. And today we have Fights in Tight Spaces, developed by Ground Shatter and published by Mode 7. It entered in early access in February 2021, and it is a blend of deck building and turn-based tactics. You go through different stages, having control of the cool Agent 11 with a purposely generic government agency, sending you to infiltrate different organizations, fighting your way up to the big boss. Before starting, you will select a deck of cards, and these cards will determine what your character can do on each turn. First, you will only have the balanced one, which includes a little bit of everything, and later you will unlock more specialized decks, focused specifically on countering attacks and a more aggressive style, or one that is based on movement and misdirection. Once a deck and mission is selected, a randomly generated combination of stages is gonna appear, and you will start your infiltration. Once a fight stage is selected, your character and enemies will be placed at random in the scenario, and you will draw a certain number of cards. After this, you and your enemies will take turns. You will use as many cards as possible, so you can maneuver and attack your enemies while trying to prevent staying in enemies' range. Enemies can only attack if you are in their range at the start of their turn, otherwise they will have to spend their turn on repositioning themselves and wait for the next turn so they can attack you. The idea is to take all the enemies down, taking as little damage as possible. What determines if you can use a card or not are a few things. Your momentum, which is basically your energy, and it's gonna replenish every turn, with each card having a different momentum cost. Also, every time you hit an enemy, you gain a point in your combo counter. Some cards will require you to have a certain combo counter instead of momentum, and some will deduct or restart your combo counter. Also, each square you move without attacking will reduce your combo counter, with some exceptions for specific cards. Some cards will do a base damage which will be deducted from the enemy's health, and once an enemy's health goes to 0, well, he's gonna get knocked down. Or dead. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're dead. Some other cards will give you block points, with each block point neutralizing damage points. And then there are some cards that even give you the ability of attacking back enemies once they attack you. Then there are the cards that allow you to manipulate position of both your enemies and your character, both being incredibly important, especially as most enemies' range is right in front of them. So moving out of the range is the key to prevent damage. Some cards will allow you to move a certain number of squares, while others will let you push, pull, shove enemies around, and this mechanic becomes even more powerful as there is a collision system which causes that every time a character is pushed to a square that is already occupied by something, it will damage the pushed enemy, and if an enemy is pushed against another enemy, then both will take damage. This is really useful and dangerous as this can also apply to your character, and there are many enemies with pushing capabilities. Also, being able to reposition and displace is important as there are areas on each stage that will instantly knock down a character if they enter into them. These are usually doorways, edges of rooftops, exits on train wagons, etc. As mentioned before, some cards will have multiple benefits like damaging an opponent and pushing them back, or kicking an enemy while pushing them aside. There are some cards that have restrictions like a range and other requirements. Some cards will only be able to be used when there is a specific distance, while others have prerequisites like having a wall on your back or having a free square behind the enemy. At the end of your turn, all unused cards are discarded, and at the start of your next turn, you're gonna draw a new hand of cards. Once you have drawn all the cards in the deck, all the cards in the discard pile will be shuffled and placed back into the deck. As you can tell, this is incredibly layered and I love it. And each turn will require you to look at the cards drawn, analyze your character position, the enemy's position, and then do some serious calculations. This becomes even more complex as you encounter more advanced enemies, and some will attack as soon as anyone comes into their range, counter-attack, cover multiple squares with their attacks, provoke special negative effects when they hit you, some will always turn towards you when you go next to them, etc. And talking about enemies, they do not use cards. Instead, they will always be looking to lock onto you as a target. The way this works is that each enemy will have a certain range for their attacks, and as soon as someone enters the range, wink wink, they will lock to that person and attack when it's their turn. They will not lock into targets if they come into range due to themselves moving, but if you move an enemy to be in range of another enemy, that will cause them to be locked on. Here, it is always important to look at each enemy characteristics to know how they work by hovering your pointer over them, to prevent making silly mistakes and end up dying, like I definitely have. As you progress and stages become more challenging, your character also needs to grow, and there are several things that will enter in play for this. Every time you clear a scenario, you will be rewarded with a selection of 3 cards. You will be able to pick one or none. Also, you will often find that some stages are not a fight, but a gym. They act as stores, and here you can purchase new cards, upgrade cards you already own, or even remove cards you don't like. Everything for a fee. Also, some stages will be marked as event, which means that something at random will happen. Having many different things that can happen, like winning or upgrading cards, health, currency, and many more. Some of these events will benefit you greatly, while some others will leave you literally broken and crying. Also, you will find some stages called medical, which allow you healing as well as increasing your maximum HP and recovering from injuries, which you can get from certain enemy attacks. Similar to other games in the genre, you will have multiple roads to select after every stage, and since you can see the entire map every time you're moving from stage to stage, you can plan where to go ahead of time and re-evaluate after every fight. Depending on your luck and plan, you can build your deck to lean towards a specific mechanic and see what works best for you. For example, I love the aggressive deck and building combo attacks to massively demolish opponents. But this doesn't always work well, especially when you have to fight enemies that have a lot of luck or maybe HP, or that can counter your own attacks. Now, in terms of graphics, as you can tell, it is very minimalistic and stylish. It features some very interesting color coding and it is very easy to understand. Visually speaking, it is not very complicated, and I think that it is the right choice as there are many things that you need to consider. There is movement, angles, and a lot of things that you have to consider, so more stuff in the scenario for you to process might not be the best. The soundtrack of this game is fantastic. I don't have anything else to say. I really like the mood, I really like the style, I really like how it feels. It fits the style of the game. Maybe because in your mind you are kind of like John Wick, and the style of the music along with the violence works pretty well together. In terms of controls, well, they are quite simple, you just click and play. I really like this game. For an early access, I have to say I am very impressed and interested to see what improvements and new features get added over time. It has great style, very simple controls, awesome soundtrack, but it does have some perceived predictability in some events that I found. Also, I wish that the replay function looked more like a real-time battle and not just like the regular game just playing each action one after the other. And also there are some balancing issues with some of the decks. But as you can tell, it is more to do with the variety of things and not exactly with the core mechanics of the game. Also, I didn't face any major bug crashes or game stoppers, so that's pretty good. With this, my early access score for Fights in Tight Spaces is 8 out of 10, and it gets my golden early access badge just because it is a pretty complete game, and I'm putting it on my list for best early access of 2021. It is priced at $24.99 US, and right as I was recording this video, the developers shared the roadmap for the game, and it seems to already consider some of the things that will make this game perfect in my eyes. And that's it for Fights in Tight Spaces. What do you think? Have you played it already? Are you gonna play it? If you have any questions or doubts, just let me know, put some messages over there in the comments. Also, we play a lot of games at twitch.tv/renechiquete.com, and also you can reach out to me via Twitter, Discord, or during the live streams themselves. I will be more than happy to have a conversation about this or any other game. I usually cover most of the games first on my streams and then I make a video game review, so if you want to be there for the first impressions, that's the place to go. Also, if you have any game that you would like me to review, just let me know there in the comments. Thank you very much for watching the video, remember to like and subscribe, and if you didn't like it, you can dislike it, but please leave a comment to allow me to understand what I can do better. And I'll see you in the next one.